The world of the Elder Scrolls has been mesmerizing players around the globe for nearly 3 decades. Whether you're a veteran who first discovered this universe through Morrowind, or you joined later with Oblivion or Skyrim, if you've ever played a game from the series, you probably fell in love with it. And the lore of the Elder Scrolls is a complex thing, and there's hardly a surprise, right? How do you explain for a new player a world with thousands of years of history, countless wars, gods, empires, and a whole array of different races all existing at the same time? Even experienced players can struggle to keep track of events and their consequences. Luckily, I've done the dirty work for you, and in this video, I've gathered the core ideas, the basics you need to understand about this universe. So by the end of this video, you will hopefully understand the basics of the world and won't go crazy. So grab your sweet roll, take a seat, and greetings, stranger. Okay, my little adventurer, before I bombard you with names, races, interesting facts, and so on and so far, let's understand what is the Elder Scrolls. And at its core, the Elder Scrolls is a fantasy universe set on the continent of Tamriel, where each game tells a different story in a different place at a different point in history. What makes the Elder Scrolls special is that its history isn't told as a single objective truth. The lore is built from myths, legends, religious texts, and unreliable historical records. Different cultures remember the same events in completely different ways, and sometimes they openly contradict each other. Because of that, the Elder Scrolls isn't just a series of games, it's a living mythology where uncertainty, interpretation, and mystery are part of the design. Each game in the series is a standalone story that takes place at a different point in history, as I said, and at this point you can probably already guess, no matter which game you start with, you can enjoy the story and the rich lore of the scrolls just as much. You can start with Morrowind and learn about the island of Vardenfell and the conflict between the Tribunal and Dagoth, or you can try Oblivion first and discover the province of Cyrodiil and the events that unfold there. The same goes for Skyrim. Its story takes place 200 years after Oblivion, and the whole plot centers around the region of Skyrim and, well, let's call it local conflict. If you're more into MMORPGs, you can try the Elder Scrolls Online, where the events happen during the Second Era, almost a millennium before Skyrim. Okay, I think I've already said too much, so don't worry, I will explain each game separately a bit later. But you get my point, the lore is more important than the order in which you discover it, and that is where the beauty of this series lies. Now let's get to the basics. When a lore spans millennia upon millennia of history, it's quite easy to get lost in it. In this section, we are going to talk about the eras and the gods, and of course the canon. Quick disclaimer, I think it's important to clarify that there are different planes of existence in this universe, so most events happen in the mortal plane that is called Mundos, but some also take place in the Daedric plane of Oblivion. So let's talk about eras. So, eras. The first time I tried to dive into the Elder Scrolls lore, I was horrified by the number of eras, centuries, and major events. After going through anger, denial, and whatever the other stages of acceptance are, I had to admit that I wouldn't be able to comprehend the entire lore in one go. So basically, there are 5 eras divided into 2 prehistoric ones and the so-called modern ones. The first prehistoric era is the Dawn Era, the beginning of time itself. This is when 2 primordial forces come into existence, Anno and Pandomai, opposing principles that represent everything and nothing. The eternal conflict gives birth to the spirits, which eventually leads to the division between the Aedra and the Daedra. By the way, guys, if I pronounce something incorrectly, I'm really sorry. This is also when Orbis, the universe itself, comes into being, and during this era, time isn't linear, it exists in a much stranger, more fluid form. The next era is the Merethic era, also known as the Mythic era, and this is when time finally becomes linear. Elves dominate Tamriel during this period, and by the way, the name Merethic comes from Old Norse and literally means era of the elves. Major events of this era include elves settling in southwestern Tamriel, the construction of the metaphysical towers, the height of elven civilization. Humans also begin migrating to Tamriel during this time. Meanwhile, the Khajiit and Argonians live throughout the continent in proletariat communities. And here comes modern eras. In the first era, dominance in Tamriel shifts from elves to men with the rise of the Cyrodiilic Empire. In its early years, the Nords of Skyrim established one of the first great empires under King Vrag, who launches multiple military campaigns that push beyond Skyrim's borders into High Rock and Morrowind. The early to middle part of the First Era becomes known as the Classical period, and it is after this time that a phenomenon called Dragon Break occurs from much of Tamriel. Over 1,000 years, linear time is shadowed and becomes non-linear again. After 2,920 years, the era ends with the assassination of the last emperor of the Remnant dynasty. Second Era. Political and military stability in Tamriel begins to dissipate, leading to the formation of several multi-provincial alliances and the absence of legitimate rulers of the Cyrodiilic Empire. The Second Era begins with the assassination of the last members of the Remnant dynasty and ends 896 years later with the unification of Tamriel under the reorganized Septim Empire led by the newly founded Septim dynasty. The Third Era was a time of consolidation and expansion of the Septim Empire established by Tiber Septim. Under the rule of the Septim dynasty, Tamriel was united under a single banner, and the emperor was considered the divine ruler and protector of the empire. During this time, the mysterious and catastrophic event known as the Imperial Simulacrum occurred. The Oblivion Crisis was a catastrophic event that marked the end of the Third Era. It was triggered by the invasion of the Daedric prince Mehrunes Dagon's forces into Tamriel. The gates to the Plains of Oblivion opened across the continent, unleashing hordes of Daedra. The Emperor Uriel Septim VII and his heirs were assassinated, leading to a search for a new dragonborn to wear the Amulet of Kings. The Fourth Era was marked by a changing political map across Tamriel. The eruption of Red Mountain in Morrowind led to significant changes in the region, causing a massive exodus of Dunmer refugees to Skyrim and other provinces. The fall of the Tribunal Temple and the rise of the New Temple further reshaped Morrowind's religious and political landscape. Morrowind would later cease to be an imperial territory. The province of Skyrim became a focal point for political and cultural tensions during this era, when the death of High King Tarek at the hands of Ulfric Stormcloak resulted in a civil war erupting in Skyrim. This era saw the return of the dragons under the leadership of Alduin the World Eater. The last Dragonborn, a legendary hero with the power to absorb dragon souls and shout in the ancient dragon language, played a pivotal role in countering this threat and ultimately defeating Alduin. Oh my god, wait guys, I need to touch some grass. Okay, if you're still here, let's dive into the inhabitants of Tamriel. The games in the series offer a variety of playable races, but that's just a part of the larger picture, like humans, mer, also known as elves, beast races, Akaviri and Etada. My god, sorry again for the wrong pronunciation. I'm doing my best, guys. So, the list is pretty impressive. Altmer, High Elves, Argonians, Bosmer, which are Wood Elves, Britons, these are humans descended from the province of High Rock, Dunmer, also known as Dark Elves, Imperials, these are humans from Cyrodiil, Khajiits, Nords, Orcimer, orcs, in other words, Redguards, which are humans originally from the continent of Yokuda. It's like a sort of the lost continent. So the variety of races allows you to customize your experience and see the history of the world from different perspectives. Even how NPCs react to you can vary depending on your race and the province you're in. And by the way, let me know in the comments, what's your favorite race? What is a fantasy universe without a pantheon of gods? Right? Well, the universe of the Elder Scrolls is absolutely massive, and the number of gods, spirits, deities that are worshipped there is so huge it could easily take me an hour just to leave them all. And I once read somewhere in Reddit, I guess, that the Elder Scrolls universe has around 240 gods. Imagine the scale of that. So still, despite the sheer variety of pantheons, gods in the Elder Scrolls can be, let's say, grouped into a few broad categories. So the first one, like variations of the primordial forces of Anu and Pandomai. Then comes Etala, or like original spirits, such as Aedra, Daedric princes, and Magna G, I guess. Then comes lesser divine spirits, as well as demigods and demi-princes, the like offsprings of Aedra and Daedra. And the last ones, like mortals who ascended and achieved apotheosis, such as Manimarco, Talos, and the Tribunal. Different regions of Tamriel also have their own cultural and religious traditions. In Skyrim, people worship the Old Nordic pantheon, while in the Somerset Isles, the dominant faith is the Aldmeri pantheon. Before we wrap everything together, it's important to look at how the Elder Scrolls itself evolved over time, not in terms of specific plots or main quests, but in how Bethesda's approach to the world lore has changed from game to game. Let's start at the very beginning. The Elder Scrolls Arena, released in 1994. Despite what the name might suggest, Arena wasn't originally planned as a grand open world RPG. In fact, early in development it was meant to be a gladiator-style game about fighting in arenas across the Empire. That idea was eventually scrapped, but the name stuck and the project slowly evolved into something much bigger. Mechanically, Arena was like a first-person dungeon crawler RPG with a massive world map, especially, by the standards of the 90s. You played as a hero trying to stop the evil battle mage Jagger, who had imprisoned the Emperor in another dimension and taken his place. The structure of the game was very straightforward, like you travel across Tamriel, visit towns, accept quests, explore huge maze-like dungeons, and gradually uncover pieces of the main story. So while Arena didn't yet have the complex mythology or cultural depth, it laid the foundation. It proved that Bethesda could build a huge RPG world, even if at that point they didn't quite know yet what kind of universe they were creating. Next up is the Elder Scrolls II Daggerfall, released in 1996. If Arena was big for its time, Daggerfall was on a completely different level. The game featured one of the largest game worlds ever created, with over 15,000 cities, towns, villages, and dungeons. And yes, they were procedurally generated, but still, just think about the scale of it. Mechanically, Daggerfall kept many of the systems from Arena, but added much more complexity and depth, like hundreds of factions with competing interests, political and social systems like kingdoms, noble families, guilds, and blah blah blah, reputation and alignment, and the consequences for your actions. It also has a huge number of spells, weapons, items, and so on. Also, skills and character progression allowed almost total freedom in building your hero. It was also here that Bethesda really began experimenting with living worlds. NPCs had shadows, cities had politics, and the world didn't revolve entirely around the player. Your actions could ripple through kingdoms, and alliances or betrayals also mattered. Daggerfall still leaned on myths and brief description, but it started to hint at the deeper history of Tamriel. The Aedra, Daedra, and some major regions were introduced in a way that felt more connected than in Arena. In short, Daggerfall was ambitious to the extreme. It combined traditional RPG mechanics with a sprawling, politically complex world. That is where players had the first taste of the depth and scope that Elder Scrolls would fully embrace in later titles. Next is the Elder Scrolls III Morrowind, released in 2002, and this is where the Scrolls that we know today really start. Unlike the previous games, Morrowind wasn't just like a massive world with dungeons and quests, it was a real world filled with its own traditions, cultures, and history. The island of Vvardenfell felt unlike any other fantasy world at the time. Volcanic landscapes, mushroom forests, and small cities that were not the typical medieval Euro fantasy that players used to. Mechanically, Morrowind expanded the RPG systems of the previous games while keeping its player freedom. So what we have: deep character customization with dozens of skills and attributes, faction systems where joining one group could affect your reputation with others, a vast variety of quests, not just like main story but hundreds of side missions, open world exploration where the player truly chooses where to go and what to do. What makes Morrowind special is its lore, and here the world of Tamriel finally started to feel like a living mythology. Like the Aedra and Daedra were firmly introduced with unique personalities and spheres of influence. The tribunal gods and their politics became central to the culture of the Dunmer. The history of Tamriel was layered, contradictory, and full of mystery, creating the deep lore fans still debate today. The success of Morrowind defined the future of the universe, and that's how appeared the Elder Scrolls IV Oblivion. So, Oblivion was released in 2006. Compared to Morrowind, Oblivion took a big step toward accessibility and a more classical fantasy tone. Cyrodiil, the central province, was designed to feel familiar. These green hills, medieval-style cities and landscapes that felt more like a fairy tale than of these Vardenfell landscapes that we used to see. Mechanically, the game simplified several systems to make it more inviting, let's say, like skills and leveling were easier to understand for new players, combat became more responsive and action-oriented, the user interface and quest management were overhauled for clarity. Oblivion also introduced more cinematic storytelling. The main questline felt like bigger, more epic, and easier to follow. Finally, we have the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim, released in 2011, and this is where the series became a cultural phenomenon. Skyrim took everything Oblivion introduced, accessibility, cinematic presentation, and open-world exploration, and pushed it even further. The game leaned heavily into Nordic-inspired mythology, like these epic landscapes and, of course, dragons. The visual and musical identity of the game made Tamriel feel larger than life, while still giving players freedom to explore at their own pace. Mechanically, Skyrim simplified systems even more, like skills were easier to level and more flexible. Combat was streamlined and more action-oriented. Quests were designed to be more intuitive with markers and in-world guidance. But what made Skyrim stand out was how it presented the lore to a massive audience. They could combine Nordic culture and history, dragons that returned as a living thread. Even first-time players could experience the richness of the lore without being overwhelmed with it. Now it's been a while, and fans all over the world are asking, when will the Elder Scrolls VI finally arrive? I have no doubt that one day we'll see it, and I'm pretty sure it will include a massive slice of Tamriel's story. Of course, there are a lot of gossips, a lot of things going on around this story. I don't know, like you heard the news, some things are happening for good, some for bad. Let's see. By the way, let me know in the comments when you think the game will be released. You might be thinking, hey, that all sounds pretty cool, but the question is still here. Which game should I play first? Morrowind? Maybe Daggerfall? Arena? I don't know. And, well, honestly, it depends on what suits you best. But in my opinion, it's better to start with Skyrim. Because Skyrim is like the essence of the Elder Scrolls. Like a concentrated dose of everything you might love. Lore, quests, mechanics, atmosphere. If you start with Oblivion, even the remastered version might not feel as polished. And Morrowind, well, it's a beautiful game, but let's be honest, it's a bit hard to jump into now more than 20 years later. Like game design, graphics, and different improvements have changed a lot since then. So I'd say once you finish Skyrim, then go back and try Morrowind and Oblivion. But before, better not. For some people, it's not considered canon, but I'd also recommend The Elder Scrolls Online. Even though its events take place about a millennium before Skyrim, the storyline is surprisingly interesting, though the only disadvantage for me was that it was quite hard to follow the main storyline. I mean, whenever you started, the game throws multiple side quests at you and you end up bouncing all over Tamriel. It could be confusing to return to the main storyline, though, I don't know, maybe that was just me. Talking about Elder Scrolls Online, there is a lot of debate about whether it's truly canon or a retcon. At this point, I personally consider it canon simply because of how massive and detailed the production is. But the question that interests me the most is this: how much impact will Elder Scrolls Online have on the Elder Scrolls 6? Right now, we can only speculate, but considering that even in Remastered Oblivion, some elements were already tweaked and reinterpreted, I think it's safe to expect an even greater influence from Elder Scrolls Online on the next mainline game. That said, there are a few things about Elder Scrolls Online that have genuinely worried me over the years, to the point that I've taken breaks from the game. At this point, it feels ridiculous that to properly progress through the story, you either have to buy multiple DLCs, which aren't cheap, or pay for a subscription to access them. And on PlayStation, you also need a PlayStation Plus subscription just to play the game at all. And I know, Elder Scrolls is like a classic example of the whole games as a service model, but honestly, I find it disappointing. I'm not really a fan of this FIFA kind of approach, you know. The games as a service model also means frequent updates, and the sheer number of DLCs is honestly a bit overwhelming. Each one adds a new area, not always a huge one, but still something significant where players can hang out until the next update, or that will happen a couple of months later. And you may ask, well, what's the problem with that? And well, I will tell you the sacred formula: the higher the production speed, the lower the quality is. There is always this triangle between speed, quality, and money. You simply can't produce truly high-quality content at a rapid pace unless you throw an enormous amount of money at it, which publishers usually don't like to do. Now, I'm not saying the DLCs are bad. No. Some are better than others, but overall they are fine, you know, like fine in the sense that fine in the sense that you can come home after work, relax, spend some time in your favorite game without too much effort. But for me, over time, these DLCs gradually lose the magic of this Elder Scrolls world. It's like this: I want to feel the eerie vibes of Vardenfell, I want to dive into the incredible atmosphere of Skyrim, but what I often get instead is just like a decent RPG with a slight Elder Scrolls flavor on top. And again, no hate toward Elder Scrolls Online, please. I basically lived in that game during the pandemic. What I really want isn't just a wannabe atmosphere, but the real taste of this world, the depth, the mystery, and the emotional way that made me fall in love with the Elder Scrolls in the first place. Over the decades that Elder Scrolls has existed, we've watched this world change, or rather grow, from a small idea into a massive universe with thousands upon thousands upon thousands of pages of lore. What will be the future of this universe? Will it produce the next hit that outshines Skyrim, or will it struggle to compete even with Daggerfall? Well, we can only guess. For now, I've told you everything I know about this universe. It was in fact quite entertaining to go through the whole lore thing of the universe. If you like this video, please don't forget to put like and subscribe. And again, guys, sorry if I mispronounce some words or names, something else. I'm doing my best. And I would be happy to make more videos on scrolls, but well, I will need ideas from you. So if you have anything in mind, let me know in the comments. And well, see you next videos. Bye!